We talk about economics here all the time on Surveillance. I'm not sure sometimes how much I know in comparison to the great economic theorists, but how much did you know before you began this project?
I think like most of America, almost next to nothing. You know, it's one of those where you have that conversation about economics, your eyes glaze over, your eyes roll back in your head, and you're like, I should just check out of this conversation.
So what was the biggest takeaway for you?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that we as a population are kind of economically illiterate. And I think that what these films do and what they start to set up is a general conversation that I think will hopefully enlighten all of us in a way that that will help us, start to understand where we are as a country and what we can do to move forward.
So the concept of economics is pretty broad. There are lots of different schools. You had to decide which school you were going to teach as well.
Yeah, well, the beauty of what we did is we had 10 different economic advisors who basically came on, all from different schools of economic thought, who basically said, if you're going to ask 20 questions about the economy, here's what you should be asking. Here's the questions you should be trying to answer. And most economists will agree to about 85% of, here's what economics is about. Then it starts to get into partisan politics. But I think there are 85% of, core economic values that is true.
You began this project about a year ago. What was the conversation you had with Paul Allen's Vulcan Productions that got them involved as well?
Well, we were developing a film about money, about explaining how money exists, why money has value, and they heard we were developing this film and said, well, Paul really wants to demystify the economy, to educate the population in a way that really isn't happening. And I said, well, we should get together immediately, and out of that conversation came We the Economy, 20 short films you can't afford to miss.
Can you do it with film? I watched the cage match between Simon Kuznets and that's a very valid debate over whether GDP is an accurate measure of the economy or whether we need to include other things. I don't know if I would have understood that just from watching the film.
But I think what the film does is it sets up a great primer for a deeper conversation or a deeper exploration. I think the biggest thing we want to do is at least open the door to people understanding how these things work.
This goes back to E.T. and Spielberg talking about how they did the keys with Peter Coyote, the keys walking through the woods. How do you jumpstart science? And they did it with the keys dangling from the belt in E.T. and Gideon Rose. This goes over to your world of spurring the debate. You have Dean Baker.
That's right.
It's one of your words. Dean Baker is one of the 3 or 4 smartest guys in Washington, creating a tension, a sweat about this. What's been the response of people that have seen? I mean, the kids who want to go out and say, hey, I want to read Gideon Rose's Foreign Affairs? I mean, that's the goal here.
I think the goal is you want to get people engaged in a way they never have been. And what's happened is you've got kids who are watching, you've got parents who are watching, you have teachers who are using this in a classroom now. That is like the greatest thing we could ever hope for this program.
Away from the rarefied atmosphere of the PhDs you deal with, this is important.
Oh, absolutely. Look, Ebola is not going to kill us. Stupidity is going to kill us. Sanctions aren't going to kill us. Stupidity is going to kill us. So anything that can be done to introduce broader sectors of the population to the real trade-offs and questions and debates. And we treat people like they're stupid, but the fact is that when they deal with their soccer teams or their baseball teams or their football teams, they understand trade-offs. That's what economics is all about.
That's right.
And educating people about the necessary policy trade-offs. You can't have no free lunch, but you can have good or better choices.
Brendan's already writing it down. Ebola's not going to kill us.
Stupid. Yeah, no, I'm changing my quote of the day. Ebola's not going to kill us. Stupidity is going to kill us.
All right.
That's like the quote of the day right there.
Yeah, right there. No, we've got it.